The wind screamed like a living thing over the frozen cliffs of the mining settlement. Snow whipped across the jagged rocks, turning the world into a blur of white. Gideon Hale pulled his coat tighter, feeling the cold bite through even the thick layers. He had faced storms before, but this one was different, violent, cruel, relentless. Then he heard it. A faint, high-pitched cry cutting through the howl of the wind. At first he thought it was the wind playing tricks, but it came again, soft, desperate, almost human. Gideon froze. The sound was strange, almost melodic, but full of fear. His heart pounded. No one should be outside in a storm like this. No one, except maybe a trapped miner. But the tone, the urgency, it wasn't human. Without thinking twice, Gideon grabbed his lantern and ran toward the sound, his boots crunching in the deep snow. The cold burned his face and hands, but he pushed forward. He had a daughter at home, and he knew the risk of leaving her was smaller than the chance of saving whatever, or whoever, was calling. The cry grew louder as he approached the edge of a small ice ravine. Then he saw her. A tiny figure curled against a jagged rock, shivering violently. At first, Gideon thought it was a strange child lost in the storm. But when the lantern light fell on her, he froze again. Scales shimmered faintly beneath frost, pale blue in the weak glow. Delicate wings, far too small to fly, were folded against her back. Her eyes were huge, liquid and terrified, glowing faintly in the storm. She was alive but barely. Gideon's first instinct was caution, but he couldn't leave her. "It's okay," he shouted over the wind, his voice steady though his heart raced. "I'm not going to hurt you." She flinched, curling tighter. A soft, trembling voice whispered through the snow, "Please, warm me." It was not the language of any miner or settler, alien, broken, yet full of fear and need. Gideon didn't hesitate. He stripped off his heavy gloves and wrapped them around her tiny body. The creature hissed softly, not in anger but in surprise, as if she had never been touched with kindness before. He could see frost clinging to her scales and wings, threatening to freeze her completely. The storm was a predator and she was prey. "Come on," Gideon muttered, scooping her up. The small weight in his arms was lighter than it looked, but he felt the fragility of it in every instinct of his body. He tucked her against his chest, pressing his coat around her, trying to shield her from the howling wind. Her little body trembled, and he realized she was close to freezing. Time was not on their side. The world blurred as he ran toward the settlement, the storm lashing at him with brutal force. Snow blinded him, and the wind threatened to push him off his feet, but he didn't stop. Every step he took mattered. The lantern light danced across the ice, revealing strange, jagged tracks that hadn't been there before, tracks much larger than hers. Something else was moving through the storm, something big, something alive. "Hold on," he whispered, heart hammering. "I won't let anything happen to you." She clung to him, wings twitching nervously. Gideon caught a glimpse of her glowing eyes scanning the horizon, sharp and aware despite her fragile state. Something about them told him she understood more than a human child might. Intelligence, fear, and a quiet plea for safety, all mixed in those small eyes. A sudden crack of ice underfoot made him stumble. The dragon girl cried out sharply, a sound that pierced the howl of the storm. Gideon froze, scanning the dark, but the tracks didn't belong to her. They belonged to something larger, moving fast and coming closer. He tightened his grip, pressing her against his chest. His mind raced. Shelter was just ahead, barely visible through the swirling snow. If they didn't reach it in time, the cold would take her, or whatever followed them might. He could feel the warmth of her tiny body fading, see the frost glinting on her delicate scales. Every second mattered. And then, just as he thought he might make it, a shadow flickered across the snow ahead, a massive shape with eyes that reflected the lantern's light. It stopped, watching them, a predator in the storm. Gideon froze, knowing that one wrong move could end both their lives. The dragon girl stiffened in his arms. Her faint, glowing eyes met his. She whispered again, almost inaudibly over the storm, "Father?" The word was strange, alien, yet it carried weight, a connection she offered, fragile and urgent, in the middle of a frozen world that wanted to kill them both. Gideon's jaw tightened. He had no choice. Whatever that shadow was, he would face it. He would protect her. He would not fail. And then the wind gusted, and the shadow moved closer, revealing a hint of something enormous, wings spanning wider than the ravine itself. The storm swallowed it, and the night went black for a moment. Gideon tightened his grip, whispering under his breath, "Hold on, little one. We're not done yet." The creature stirred faintly, warm against his chest, as if sensing his determination. And in that instant, Gideon realized this small being, this dragon girl, had just changed his life forever. But something was coming. Something big. And it was very close. Gideon's boots sank deep into the snow as he sprinted toward the settlement. The wind whipped at him, carrying sharp ice crystals that cut his face. The small dragon girl in his arms shivered violently, her tiny wings twitching as frost crept along them. He pressed her closer, pulling his coat tighter around both of them, but even his warmth seemed barely enough. Ahead, the first outlines of the mining cabins appeared through the blizzard, leaning against the wind like battered sentinels. He could see the orange glow of lights struggling to pierce the storm. Relief surged in his chest, but only for a moment. Something in the snow behind him shifted, a movement too deliberate to be wind. He turned his head, squinting against the snow, and saw it, a massive set of tracks following him deeper than his own, with claw marks sunk into the ice. Gideon's heart jumped. The shadow had not left. Whatever it was tracking them. He whispered urgently to the dragon girl, "We have to make it inside. Stay quiet, stay still." She whimpered softly but clung to him, her glow dim and flickering. He spotted a half-buried walkway leading to the nearest cabin and headed for it. Each step was a battle. The storm pushed against him like a living wall. His mind raced. The creature behind them was strong, fast, patient. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't even know what it was yet. But he had a choice: move fast or risk losing her forever. When they reached the cabin, the door was partially blocked by snow and ice. Gideon kicked and pulled, sweat and snow freezing on his brow. With one final shove, the door gave way and he stumbled inside. The cabin smelled of burned wood and dust. He slammed the door behind him, pressing his back against it. The wind howled outside, rattling the thin walls. The dragon girl trembled in his arms. He gently wrapped her in his own coat again, and then, almost instinctively, pulled off his daughter's smaller winter coat, folded it carefully, and draped it over her tiny shoulders. She blinked, her glowing eyes widening slightly as warmth seeped into her scales. She let out a small, relieved sound, curling closer to him. Gideon smiled faintly, feeling a small victory amidst the storm. For a moment, the world outside faded, replaced by the fragile bond between human and dragon. But relief was fleeting. A deep, low rumble shook the cabin walls. Gideon froze. The sound didn't come from the wind. It came from outside. Something enormous was moving across the snow, deliberate and heavy. He peered through the frost-covered window. Through the blur, he could see a shadowed shape, larger than any dragon he had ever imagined, wings stretched wide, claws scraping ice. It was circling the cabin, testing the structure. The dragon girl pressed her head against his chest, glowing faintly. Her small voice, barely audible over the wind, whispered, "Father, protect." Gideon's jaw tightened. He had no weapons, only quick thinking and courage. He grabbed a heavy metal pipe from the corner and braced himself. If the creature tried to break in, he would have to fight, protect her at all costs. He placed the dragon girl carefully behind a barrel, using it as a shield. A sudden gust slammed the door hard, rattling the cabin. The shadow outside jumped back, then landed with a thundering crash, ice cracking under its weight. Gideon could hear it sniffing, clicking, the sound alien and intelligent. It was not mindless. It knew they were inside. Gideon's mind raced. He needed a distraction. He spotted a small pile of mining explosives in the corner, mostly forgotten. Carefully, he slid one toward the door, hoping to create a loud enough noise to divert attention without harming the dragon girl. He lit the fuse and threw it toward the doorway. The explosion shattered ice and snow outside, echoing like thunder through the storm. The creature roared, a sound that rattled Gideon's chest. The cabin shivered. He grabbed the dragon girl, pulling her close again. Her eyes glowed brightly for a moment, and she whispered something strange, an alien syllable that made the hairs on his neck stand up. The creature outside hesitated, tilting its head as if confused. Gideon realized she had some connection to it, some communication he couldn't yet understand. Using the moment, Gideon sprinted toward the second cabin, ducking under a fallen beam. The dragon girl clung to him tightly, wings fluttering in panic, but he didn't stop. He felt the weight of responsibility, her life in his hands. Every step mattered. Every decision counted. They reached the second cabin, slightly larger and sturdier. Gideon shoved open the door and collapsed inside, gasping. The dragon girl snuggled against him, letting out a small, trembling purr. Gideon smiled, relief and pride mixing with the fear still racing through his veins. They had survived the storm, at least for now. But outside, the sound of massive wings beating against the snow grew louder. He pressed the dragon girl close and whispered, "We're not safe yet." They're still out there, and they're coming back. Her glowing eyes met his, sharp and alert. In them he saw intelligence, fear and trust all at once. Whatever was following them, she seemed to know it, and somehow she believed he could protect her. Gideon swallowed, knowing the storm wasn't the only danger. The night had just begun. A sudden shadow passed across the window, a hint of the massive creature moving closer. Gideon stiffened. He tightened his grip around the dragon girl, whispering, "We have to be ready. Whatever happens, I won't let anything touch you." The wind howled again, and the storm outside seemed to grow stronger, as if testing his resolve. And then through the roar came another sound, a soft, urgent cry, but not hers. Something else was out there. Something that wanted them. Gideon's heart raced. The night was far from over. Gideon crouched low in the cabin, the dragon girl pressed tightly against his chest. The storm outside was relentless, snow and ice rattling the roof. But it wasn't the wind that kept him on edge anymore. It was the quiet, almost intelligent way the shadow moved beyond the windows, circling, testing, waiting. He didn't know what it was yet, but he had to figure it out, and fast. The dragon girl's glowing eyes flickered in the dim light of the cabin. Gideon noticed something strange. The glow pulsed in patterns, almost like a heartbeat, spreading across her tiny scales. He had never seen anything like it. Curiosity sparked in him despite the fear. Carefully, he reached a hand toward her, brushing the frost from her shoulder. Her scales felt warm beneath his fingers, alive. The glow intensified, shifting in colors he couldn't name, blue, violet, and hints of silver. "What are you?" he whispered. She flinched at his voice but didn't pull away. Then she did something unexpected. A small flap of her wings lifted, and a stream of light shot from her eyes, projecting shapes on the cabin wall, symbols he didn't recognize. They shifted and rotated almost like a map. Gideon's jaw tightened. She was intelligent, maybe more than any being he had ever encountered. She wasn't just a lost creature, she was something else entirely. A sudden crack of ice outside made them both freeze. The massive predator had returned, closer this time. Its shadow stretched across the cabin, wings brushing against the frozen ground. It was waiting, studying them. Gideon's mind raced. He needed to protect the girl, but he also needed answers. He glanced at the symbols on the wall again. "Do you mean that thing outside?" he asked softly, pointing. The dragon girl blinked, and the patterns shifted, more intricate now. One symbol pulsed in time with her breathing, a strange, glowing circle that seemed to hum in the cabin's air. Gideon realized it was a warning. Somehow she was communicating danger, not in words but in light. Then she whispered, a single word, fragile but clear, "Exile." Gideon's brow furrowed. Exile? Was she cast out? From where? And why? The thought sent a chill deeper than the storm ever could. He gritted his teeth, glancing at the massive shadow outside. Whatever had abandoned her, or whatever she had fled from, was following her now. And he had to keep her alive. He moved quickly, scanning the cabin for tools. A pile of spare mining equipment caught his eye. Ropes, hooks, and metal rods. He grabbed a coil of rope, a heavy hook, anything that might give him leverage if the creature tried to break in. His plan wasn't perfect, but it was all he had. Gideon's courage, intelligence, and sheer determination had carried him this far. He wasn't about to stop now. The dragon girl stirred in his arms, glowing brighter as she pressed against him. Her small wings beat nervously. She whispered again, another alien word, "They," her voice trailed, fear in her tone. Gideon's chest tightened. Whoever they were coming. And she thought he could help her. A sudden crash outside made him freeze. Something heavy struck the cabin wall. Snow fell from the roof like rain, and Gideon felt the wood shiver under the impact. The creature was testing the structure, probing for weakness. He glanced at the dragon girl. Her glow flared in alarm, and for the first time he saw her curl protectively into herself, wings wrapping around her like a shield. "Stay calm," Gideon whispered, heart pounding. "We'll get through this. Together." He glanced around the cabin, weighing his options. There was a small chimney opening, partially blocked by ice. If he could lure the creature closer to it, maybe he could trap it outside, buy them time. It was risky, but he had to act. He placed the dragon girl carefully behind a crate, shielding her as best he could. Then he crept toward the chimney, dragging a length of rope with him. His hands shook from cold and adrenaline, but he focused on one thought: protect her. Every step mattered. Every second counted. Outside, the shadow shifted again, wings brushing the ground, eyes reflecting the cabin's lantern light. Paused, sensing movement. Gideon froze, barely breathing. Then he pulled the rope, sending it spiraling toward the chimney. It hooked on a ledge outside, and the shadow hesitated, confused by the sudden motion. The dragon girl's glow pulsed rapidly, almost like a signal. Gideon realized she was helping him, not in words but through some strange connection. The circle of light on the wall seemed to expand, filling the cabin with a soft hum. He felt a tiny surge of hope. She trusted him enough to guide him. Suddenly, a branch from the storm-bent roof shattered the window pane. Snow and ice poured in, and the shadow let out a roar that rattled the walls. Gideon ducked, shielding the girl. The light from her scales flared, bright and almost blinding, as if warning the creature away. It hesitated, then retreated slightly, wings folding cautiously. Gideon exhaled sharply, chest heaving. He had survived the first real test of their bond. The dragon girl pressed her head against his chest, warm despite the cold, and whispered again, "Safe, for now." But the glow in her eyes dimmed slightly, a reminder that this was only the beginning. Whoever had exiled her, and whoever was hunting her, was still out there. Gideon's mind raced with questions, but he had one certainty. He would not let her be taken. Not now. Not ever. Through the storm, through the fear, one thought anchored him. He had found her, and together they would survive. And somewhere in the distance, a faint, pulsing light blinked in the snow. A signal, mysterious and deliberate, hinting at something much larger, waiting to be discovered. Gideon's jaw tightened. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it. But the night had more secrets yet to reveal. The storm outside showed no mercy. Wind tore at the cabin walls, rattling the windows and shaking the roof like it might collapse at any moment. Gideon pressed himself against the door, the dragon girl clutched tightly in his arms. Her small body trembled, but the coat he had draped over her kept her from freezing completely. The glow in her scales flickered weakly, signaling fear, but also awareness. She knew something was coming. Then it appeared. The massive frost dragon stepped into the lantern light, its eyes blazing with intelligence and hunger. Its wings spread wide, brushing against the snow, sending flurries spinning through the air. The floor creaked under its weight, ice groaning. It was enormous, larger than any creature Gideon had ever faced, and it was hunting them. Gideon's heart pounded. He had no weapons beyond a metal pipe and his wits. Every second counted. The creature sniffed, wings twitching, circling the cabin with precise, deliberate movements. One wrong step, one moment of hesitation, and the dragon girl would be gone. He set the girl down behind the crate again, wrapping the coat tightly around her. "Stay here. Don't move," he whispered. She looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. It was a look that made his chest ache. He could not fail her. The dragon outside growled low, a sound that vibrated through the wooden cabin. Gideon took a deep breath. He had to act, and he had to be clever. He grabbed a lantern, a coil of rope, and the heaviest metal rod he could find. He had an idea, a desperate plan, but it was the only chance. The creature hissed, wings beating as it advanced. Gideon baited it, dragging the rope along the floor to make noise, luring it closer to the half-collapsed wall near the back of the cabin. The frost dragon followed, cautious but determined, sniffing, circling, testing the structure. Gideon's hands shook, but he focused, moving deliberately, calculating each step. Then he grabbed a pile of mining explosives, small charges left over from repairs. He set them near the wall, covering them with snow and debris to make a trap. The dragon hissed, sensing the disturbance. Gideon's heart pounded. One misstep and he would die, or worse, the girl would die. He lit the fuse, praying it would hold long enough. Seconds stretched like hours. The dragon hesitated, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air, then lunged at the wall. The explosion shattered the ice and snow outside, sending a deafening roar into the storm. The wall collapsed, snow and ice flying everywhere. The creature stumbled, wings flaring in alarm. Gideon seized the moment. He sprinted, scooping the dragon girl into his arms again. Her small wings fluttered frantically, glowing brighter than ever. She pressed against him, trembling, whispering a series of alien words that made his skin crawl, but in the sound he heard trust and hope. Somehow she knew he could save them both. The frost dragon roared, furious, and lunged again. Gideon ducked behind a fallen beam, swinging the metal rod to block ice and debris from crushing them. He pushed himself, running toward the second cabin, sturdy, fortified, and possibly their only chance at survival. The snow beneath them shook with every landing of the predator's claws. Inside the second cabin, Gideon barricaded the door with heavy furniture and crates. He set the dragon girl down carefully, wrapping her again in the coat. She pressed her tiny face against his chest, eyes glowing faintly, pulsing in patterns he couldn't understand, but he felt the meaning. She was alive because of him. Outside, the dragon roared one final time, wings slamming against the snow. Its shadow darkened the cabin windows, massive and threatening. Gideon felt the floor tremble with every beat of its wings. The creature circled, sniffed, growled, but it didn't break in. He realized something remarkable. She had communicated with it. Somehow, through her glow, her presence, her trust in him, they had slowed it down. Gideon's chest heaved, heart racing, adrenaline burning every nerve. The dragon girl whispered again, "Safe, because you fight." The words, broken and alien, were enough. He smiled, despite the storm, despite the danger. He had acted decisively, with courage, intelligence, and a willingness to risk everything for another being. Human determination had bought them survival, for now. The storm raged outside, louder than ever, and the creature finally moved away, retreating into the night. Gideon collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. The dragon girl nestled against him, warmth returning to her small body. She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly, and whispered, "Father?" Gideon's chest tightened. He realized she had chosen him in that frozen night as her protector. And he had accepted that responsibility with every ounce of strength he had. But just as he allowed himself a small moment of relief, the glow of her scales shifted, pulsing in a new rhythm. Outside, faint lights appeared in the distance, tiny, hovering, and deliberate. Gideon froze, heart skipping a beat. They were not alone. Whatever had exiled her, whatever had sent the frost dragon to hunt her, there were others now, watching, coming. He pressed the dragon girl to his chest, whispering, "We've survived this, but they are coming. I promise I will not let them take you." Her wings twitched slightly, a small signal that she understood. They were safe for the moment, but the night had more challenges yet. The wind howled, the storm raged, and Gideon knew one thing clearly: this was only the beginning. The storm had passed, leaving a quiet white world broken only by wind-tossed snow. Gideon sat on the cabin floor, the dragon girl wrapped in the coat, resting against his chest. Her wings twitched occasionally, small pulses of glowing light rippling across her scales, but she no longer shivered violently. Relief washed over him. For the first time that night it felt like they were safe. Gideon looked down at her tiny face, pale but alive, and smiled softly. "You're okay now," he whispered. She blinked, the alien glow of her eyes softening as she pressed closer, curling into him like a child. Despite everything, the blizzard, the predator, the unknown threats, they had survived. The warmth of his coat, the quick decisions he had made, the risks he had taken, it had worked. The first rays of weak sunlight touched the frost outside, glinting off the jagged ice. Gideon glanced out the window, scanning the snow-covered landscape. The tracks of the massive frost dragon led away into the distance. He knew it wasn't gone forever, but for now the immediate threat had been beaten. A small victory, and one he and the dragon girl would remember. "You saved me," she whispered again, her alien voice trembling. Gideon felt a lump in his throat. "No," he said, shaking his head. "We saved each other." Her tiny body pressed into him, wings twitching softly in comfort. It was a bond that transcended words, species, and worlds, a fragile, miraculous connection. Gideon glanced around the cabin. Supplies were sparse, but he could make this place livable, at least temporarily. He fed her what little food he had, melting ice to water, warming it carefully. She nibbled, cautious but curious, and each small bite brought a faint glow to her scales. Every action he took had a visible effect. Her life was improving because of him. Human courage, intelligence, and care were not abstract ideas. They were tangible, life-saving. As she ate, Gideon thought of his own daughter, who would have been frightened and worried at the sight of this strange creature. He smiled faintly at the thought. If she could see them now, she would understand the importance of compassion, of doing the right thing even when it was dangerous. He had given his daughter's coat without hesitation because saving a life mattered more than possessions. That choice, simple but decisive, had changed everything. The dragon girl finished eating and climbed into his lap, resting her head against his chest. She whispered something in her alien language, soft and almost musical. Gideon didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. Gratitude. Trust. A bond formed in the crucible of danger. Hours passed. The storm faded into a quiet snowfall, and Gideon finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. He glanced out the window again. In the distance, faint lights shimmered across the horizon, hovering, deliberate, almost like they were searching. The glow made his heart tighten. Whoever had exiled the dragon girl, or whoever was watching, was still out there. Their journey wasn't over. He wrapped the dragon girl tightly in the coat again and held her close. "I won't let anyone take you," he promised. Her wings twitched in acknowledgement. Somehow she knew he meant it. Somehow she knew humans could be extraordinary, capable of courage, kindness, and determination against impossible odds. Gideon began to prepare the cabin for what might come. He strengthened doors, stacked furniture as barriers, and set simple alarms using tin cans and rope. Every small measure was a way to buy time to protect her. He realized that even in a world full of strange dangers and unknown creatures, human ingenuity mattered. Every calculated risk, every clever decision, every act of bravery could tip the balance between life and death. Even as he worked, the dragon girl watched him, glowing softly. Her eyes held intelligence beyond her size, a quiet acknowledgement that humans were not just fragile creatures, they could also be heroes. Gideon smiled faintly. This little being, abandoned, exiled, lost, had shown him courage in her own way too. Together they had survived the night. Night fell again, the faint snow still drifting outside. Gideon sat in the cabin with the dragon girl resting against him, the faint glow from her scales filling the room with soft light. He knew the storm had been just the beginning. Somewhere beyond the horizon, there were questions still unanswered. Who had sent the frost dragon? Why had she been exiled? What other forces were watching, waiting? Yet in that quiet cabin, Gideon felt something stronger than fear. He had acted decisively. He had protected life. He had shown compassion when others might have looked away. Humans could shine, even in the harshest conditions. And he would continue to shine for her, for his daughter, for the impossible odds that still waited beyond the storm. The dragon girl stirred, whispering faintly, "They, coming." Gideon tightened his grip. "Then we'll be ready," he said firmly. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Outside, faint lights flickered in the distance, moving slowly across the snow. Gideon pressed the dragon girl closer. They were safe for now, but the adventure was far from over. Whatever had exiled her, whatever hunted her, would not give up easily. And Gideon knew with a quiet, unwavering certainty that human courage, intelligence, and compassion would be the force that kept them alive, and that whatever mysteries awaited, he would meet them head-on. The storm had ended, but the night still held secrets. And their journey had only just begun.